Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week. Barry and I have got a juicy topic to talk about again today.
Indeed.
Handing over our power to another person or persons, a group even. And I was just telling Barry that we talked about it a few weeks ago about the episode when we talked about twin flames, and Barry had read about it, but I had watched the documentary on the twin flames universe, or whatever it's called, nation, universe, something like that. And
Sorry, let's be blunt.
Well, I watched another episode, another series about the same thing, and it was called Escaping the Twin Souls Universe, or whatever they call it. And as I was watching it, I was so aware of, it was just shocking how we abdicate our power and hand it over to another human being. And whether it's somebody we're in a relationship with, or a group that we're connected with, or an organization, or a cult, as Barry said. But it's so interesting, that dynamic where we don't trust our own instincts anymore. And it got so bad in this cult where people were actually changing their sex. They were told that because they wanted to keep matching up the twin flames within their universe, as they called it, their group. So what they would do is there were far more women than there were men. So they started saying to a lot of the women, no, actually, your true sexual identity, you are a divine masculine. And these women would be saying, but no, I'm a heterosexual female, and I've never ever felt masculine and have no desire to be with another woman. But they went along with it, and they had life-changing surgeries because they had handed their power over to these two people that were running this organization. And it's subtle, it's over time, and I'm definitely not speaking out of judgment, because having being diagnosed with codependency myself, I know how in a narcissistic relationship I have slowly but surely handed over my power in the relationship, a couple of them. And so I'd say it without any judgment, it's just so surprising how far we can go in denying our own intuition, our own instincts, our own knowledge about ourselves, and take somebody else's opinion and have it override what we know about who we are. So are you as shocked as me, Barry?
I'm shocked about how they got away with this, and how these people who led the organization don't appear to be that charismatic or in charge visually. They don't show. It's like, it seems to me, the people who they convinced, hypnotized, controlled, had such a low level of self-worth, self-value, that that they're easy targets, to put it that way. And so for me, I have a great deal of frustration with the people who get in those roles and lead, and a great deal of compassion for the people who suffer that. At the same time, I know and recognize from the work I've done, done similar work, knowing where those patterns get seeded way, way back, that aren't actually from this leader, this cult personality, whatever the sort of thing is. However, it's just exacerbating what somebody's got innately within them. I'm grateful that I've had the foresight, luck, internal guidance to avoid those organizations, because I came close a couple of times to joining groups that were very not soulmate stuff or twin flame stuff, but just personal development work, where I could see clearly the person who was at the top was feeding on the energy of the people below. And I clearly was like, I don't have that desire to give that energy over, or to be led by this person who I don't trust as being in the integrity that I desire. And so this, I mean, So I know what we're saying is that this conversation about the twin flames is a starting point, but we're talking about this in a much bigger picture,
Yeah,
which is how we as individuals do or don't allow somebody else to take control of our lives in a way.
yeah. No,
Right.
exactly. I mean, yeah, just like you said, we already touched on the twin flames. This is not about the twin flames anymore. This is about how we can get seduced into a cult mentality or a group mentality, or as I said, even just in our individual relationships, we start to um, see somebody as better than we are, wiser, more all-knowing, more spiritual, more whatever it is, that whatever we attribute to them, we don't know that that's within us. We
Right.
don't know that we are actually seeing our own greatness. We're projecting our own greatness onto these other people.
And
And
we're also,
say that again.
sorry, I say, we're also abandoning ourselves at the same time.
Exactly, which we are going to get into deeper.
Well, yes, we are.
But it
I'm
is,
reading ahead of the script.
and going back to the twin flames group, because we're really talking about the group, these are
Yeah.
people who were seeking love, they were seeking guidance, they were seeking, um, and again, I think what you're pointing to is that they were looking for somebody to complete them rather than just be in partnership and in a healthy relationship. They saw the other people as this whole, the way they sell it, this other half of you, this part of you that completes you. So they were already coming in feeling less than, feeling only half of something. So right there, as you were saying, there's a setup right there. I mean, that's where the damage was already in. So what these people were selling was attracting people that were already very vulnerable.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that is the thing, is that there is a certain science of predatory behavior in a way, because they are attracting people who, and unfortunately in our society, a lot of people in our society are feeling less than, are feeling they don't deserve, they are feeling they can't have what they want. And they abdicate their own responsibility because it's easier to give the power to somebody else to guide them and run their lives for them in a way. So some people do seek out that sort of um, being led by the nose in a way. I've talked about it in my work as being like the puppet to a puppet master,
Mhm.
because you're giving somebody else the power of the strings to control how you do things or not. And in the twin flame, I keep wanting to say cult, group, population, the two people running it in particular were clearly focused on how they could benefit themselves more than they can benefit their audience.
Yeah.
It's
It's
one of
very,
the
very
right.
interesting. I watched, it was very clear that the male had, I think has this sort of energy of a narcissist, in the sense that he wanted to be sort of up on a stage, being a guide, a coach, or this, and he tried different modalities before he hit on this one thing. And his partner, the woman that he is in a relationship or married to, actually, um, it appears that she brought in the sort of spiritual side of things, that she was more in the spiritual. But I think he was an opportunist that saw that their coupling, their coming together, that they were stronger as two people with all the knowledge she had about spirituality and everything. And he also saw an opening to really capitalize on something that was going to make him a lot of money,
Oh yeah,
and prey on people's weaknesses. And it was interesting, in the documentary, you actually even saw that within their relationship, he had taken control of her.
yeah,
She was acquiescing to him. He was admonishing her for speaking back to him or something like that. And you could see he was really had control over her, which is
right.
very interesting. Um,
That's the challenge with these sort of structures, is that the behavior that's being controlled by the people in charge ends up becoming like self defeating, because they end up doing it to each other. And
mhm,
so it's like they don't. It's hard to, I think, for people leading organizations like that, where the two people, if it's two people leading it, can be equal, because the energy is tearing them apart as well.
mhm, yeah. And what they were doing is training people under them to become sort of soldiers of theirs and to be equally abusive and and controlling people's minds. It was quite sort of shocking to me to see, especially when it came down to. I have been very close on many occasions to cult-like behavior, and
Hmm.
thank God, and as I say, cult-like relationships too. And thank God, at some point, a part of me has gone, no, no, not doing that, not going there. But to go as far as have your sexuality or your or your what you identify as be argued with and told that that's not who you are and that you have to have surgery to correct it, that's on a whole other level. I mean,
That's a,
I thought,
that's a level of manipulation that's beyond, absolutely. That gets heinous because you're violating somebody else's physical body, not just violating their mental perceptions or their emotional well-being,
mhm,
which those things can generally get healed. When you change somebody's physical structure because they believe you're telling them the truth, there's not much way you can't really get back from there.
yeah, it was like that other. I'm forgetting his name right now, but the man that was branding women. Catherine Oxenberg's daughter was one of them, India Oxenberg. She fought very hard to get her out of that cult. But again, it was that sort of putting their mark on somebody and convincing these women to get branded with his initials. It was pretty extreme.
Yeah. I want to take it up a level though, because the thing about this is this conversation is definitely people, a lot of people, not all people, a lot of people feel like they don't have what it takes to own their own lives and take care of themselves. They want somebody else to guide. And in a relationship, that happens oftentimes where they want their partners to be the person in charge. This, what we talked about so far, is really the extremely dark version of how they can go. But it happens on subtle levels too. And it's funny when you're talking about how this behavior of the organization with the soldiers and the convincing and the way they were in the organization, what kept coming up for me, and I'm going to be very controversial about this, is the way organized religion works.
Oh yeah.
Because organized religion tends to keep the flock at the behest of the shepherd.
Hmm.
And so the way they work, and I'm being particularly blunt about this because coming from, in some ways, an outside perspective and wasn't raised with Catholic faith or the Christian faith, I see how people who are in those teachings tend to give over their power to a higher person, not just a higher power, but to a higher person within the confines of their religion. And the funny thing is, the joke I remember from years ago about, what's the definition of a cult? It's a religion with not enough members. It's kind of the point is that religion, the model of cults, the model of religions are not too distant. And not saying that's bad, but if you are following a religious teaching, not a teacher, but teaching, remember that you are fully embodied with that teaching yourself. So you don't become a slave or a sheep to some person who thinks they know better than you do.
Exactly.
You know?
And again, going back to the type of person that can get seduced into these environments, I mean, often it is childhood trauma. It's not having adequate parenting, often where you did have somebody that nurtured and loved you and took care of you. So there's that hole in you that you want somebody to take care of you that never got satisfied as a young child. And so therefore, it's that learned helplessness we can get, or that failure to thrive, and we are constantly looking to another to protect us and to take care of us. It's that wound that was formed and never healed. So it's very
Right.
important to do the inner work. And again, I've said this before, but it's the same thing. It's people that are disconnected, or don't listen to their intuition and their own wisdom, have often
Right.
been trained since a young child to not hear themselves. They've been sexually abused and they've been told, no, it didn't happen, that's not what it was, it wasn't meant that way, you're imagining things. Or so you are robbed at a very early age of your own intuition, your own belief system. And so it's not, we're talking about this in absolutely no way in any shaming way at all. It's just incredibly sad to me that there are people out in the world who will take advantage of people that have suffered a traumatic childhood and maybe don't have the skills necessary to sort of say no when there's
Right.
this body screaming, this isn't right, don't do it. The
that's the
need for connection keeps them there, or love, or
right.
whatever it is they
Well,
want.
it's also in some ways for a lot of people, it's that desire to sort of find a way up in their lives. If they come from a place that was very wounded or very abused or very challenged, sometimes these people are looking for an answer that will make them feel better.
Hmm.
And so they'll invest, like buying a lottery ticket, in some opportunity that might give them back what they think they're missing, which is inaccurate. We can get to that in a moment. And it's this challenge that people face is they're not necessarily willing to look inside themselves for the answer. They keep looking outside for the solution. And that's where well, these predators, for want of a better word, are waiting in and hoping that you'll reach out to them because they can convince you they have the answers for you, but they're not delivering that from you. They just take you, they're looking to you to be able to draw your your life force basically into their lives so they can feel better about themselves. Because on the other side of the coin, a lot of these cult leaders and people at the top are as maybe even more wounded because they're so um, empty themselves. They keep feeding other people like a vampire does, continually trying to get fed up. And I'm using these words intentionally, by the way. So the people who are being victimized by them don't know or don't recognize or don't yet understand that they actually have the power themselves. So definitely doing the inner work, as you were saying, and to look at yourselves and be willing to face yourself in the mirror, so to speak, so you can make peace with those past wounds that make you whole again, is really where the work is.
Hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you. I'll often say to my clients that the narcissist in their life is not this big, strong, powerful person. They're actually a very fear-based, fragile, ego-driven person that needs, as you say, that they are a vampire. They need to suck off other people. They need to feel energized and alive by controlling and manipulating and often hurting another person. If they're the malignant narcissist, they enjoy
Right,
inflicting pain. It makes them feel powerful. So I totally agree, and I think that to know that, and it is, it's that as I said, it's so sad that there are people out in the world that are, but they have a personality disorder. They're not going to change. Do not expect them to change. They're not going to suddenly become compassionate and have
right,
empathy for what they've done to you. If you find yourself in a relationship or in an organization where you feel like you're being made to feel that you're crazy and that what your gut is telling you is wrong, and that the other person knows you better than you know yourself, run, run,
yes,
run.
absolutely,
Yeah, it's that I've interviewed on one of my old shows a woman that had escaped a cult, and as she was sharing her experience with me, she said, nobody, when she first met this religious organization in Vancouver, she had a childhood where things were not ideal, and there were things missing, and she was looking for that sense of family, and it was a religious based organization, and she said they don't come out with signs saying, hey, we're a cult, hand over your money, hand over your life, hand over your mind, your body, your soul. They
right,
they draw you in with because they're so good at knowing what it is you want. Like I said, these other people, they knew
yeah,
that people wanted love, so what did they
yeah,
sell them? The perfect love, and they set themselves up for having, we've found it, look at us, we can help you find it too.
there you
um,
go,
yeah, and so it's that boiling the frog. You already are invested. You've invested maybe time, money, relationships. They're your newfound family if you didn't have a strong family unit that you came from. And often, sometimes people just think, I'm too far in. I've got
right,
to stay. Or they're too embarrassed to go back to their family and say, you know what, I made a mistake. This is a cult. Or I'm being controlled in my relationship. Again, they want to separate you from their family, just as a narcissist does. It's
yeah,
like, they divide and conquer. But often they were planting um, memories in them as well, like telling them that they had been sexually abused by their parents and they just forgotten about it, they didn't know about it, to create even further a rift. And again, as I said, that can happen in your intimate relationship. Your partner can fear your the strength of you and your family, so they can start instilling things into you about, oh, the way your mother looks at you like that, did you ever think that she just sort of puts you down, or that she's competitive with you, or it's just subtle at first, but it's a way to separate you from, or your sister or whoever, because they
Yes,
don't
indeed.
they don't want to deal with the extended family.
Well, the thing is that their power comes from your being isolated, and
Exactly.
that's the thing is because what it is that their presentation will not stand up to examination by anybody else. So by having you not have people you can rely on or talk to or bounce things off of, you don't have any checks and balances, so to speak, for
Hmm.
what this person is telling you. So when this person is convincing you of all these different things, because you may be someone who has not had a how many words like a baseline of understanding of yourself and the truth of knowing who you are, so that when you get told things by the other person, you are swayed to believe it because you don't have any sort of backstop or somebody else in your life that says that's not true about you. This is true about you.
Hmm.
And so, in some ways, it's challenging because when we do come from a family that's dysfunctional or messy or any other way, we don't have a real guidance system that keeps us on the straight and narrow. And so it gets easy to get swayed off of the path by a teacher who presents what we think is the right answer, but has an ulterior motive to get you under their control. So we get swayed into their coven, for want of a better word, from cult. But it's that feeling of being controlled. And so it is, I mean, we've said this so many times in the show about doing the inner work is where it's at.
But you know what I wanted to add here? Oh, sorry, you finish what you were going to say.
I was going to lead something else entirely, so go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as you were speaking then, I thought, you know what, this has happened to me outside of a relationship, and outside, it's happened to me probably more times than I'd like to admit to, but it definitely has happened. But one of the times it happened with my first therapist. And now I went into therapy to heal myself, to really sort of work on myself. And before I knew it, my therapist was telling me that he had fallen in love with me, and that he could get struck off if we didn't run away together. And
Oof.
oof, oof, a big time oof, yes. I was 29 at the time and probably should have known better, but I didn't know better. I had never been in therapy before. I felt I was not attracted to this man. I felt responsible. He told me that he could be struck off and that he could lose his license, and I, as the good little girl I was, because this is the show we're going to do next. We're going to talk about when we abdicate responsibility for ourselves, or when we
Yes.
um, when we put others' needs ahead of our own. And
Yeah.
that was just one time when I really did not realize at the time that I could say no, and I didn't have anything inside me to say, this is wrong. You are coercing me. I do not feel that way about you, and I'm walking away. I didn't. He had created such a bubble around me. He had told me that I should not be dating anybody at that during our time that we were in therapy together. He wanted me to have 3 sessions a week, and they were always at 9 o'clock at night and would go much longer than your 50 minutes. But again, I felt special. He was giving me special time. And
Right.
boy, I should have reported him. I didn't. I did end up finding a wonderful therapist afterwards who assured me that I could have gone in there naked, dancing the dance of the seven veils, and it still wouldn't have been my responsibility.
Well,
But
I think, yeah, that's the thing. You got, first of all, you got good feedback and got clarity from somebody else. But the other is what I'm noticing there, what you're talking about, is almost like he made it seem like you had the power to choose, but it was your job to save him.
yeah, 100%.
So manipulative.
I know, it was unbelievable. And I did end up, being with him for a short time, until he, was so crazy that even I knew something was wrong. When the gun came out and was like, you know what, let's just kill ourselves. I was like, I don't think that's really the answer.
No, no, no.
That's when I was able to get away. But it was It took me a long time to really unpack that and really see that I had been groomed from the get-go, and that I
Right.
had been made to feel that it was my responsibility from the very beginning. And at no point did he take any responsibility. It was all about, as you said, exactly, you put your finger on it. It was like, you need to be with me to rescue me because I have put my career and everything on the line for you by falling in love with you.
Make
And
you responsible. Yeah, absolutely. It's
yeah,
like so messed up.
so messed up. And there was no love in it. Obviously, clearly it wasn't. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that for a very long time. But yes, on reflection, it doesn't always happen just in a religious setting. It can happen in a therapeutic session, and it can also, it really does happen a lot in self help movements.
Yeah,
I
well, yeah.
I remember a situation equally so not so long ago where there was one of our teachers was inappropriate with a couple of the students, not just one, a couple, and it started coming back. And I went to the organization and I said, I don't think this is right. We are really revealing intimate stuff about ourselves, and this person is playing with at least three women's feelings here. One of whom left the group because of the mess it became,
Right.
and and they try to do the what this other organization does, which is the mirroring exercise, which is, well, what does this say about you? The problem is not the teacher that's overstepping a boundary.
That's your reaction to
What's
the
your
teacher.
problem? Yeah. And I
Yes.
had to hang on so tight to myself and say, listen, when I was younger, I didn't call people out on bad behavior. So yes, this is about me right now. This is a chance for me to actually stand up and say, this is wrong. This is somebody that's up on a podium having us share intimate things about ourselves to help us with our self-development, and then using it to have a little harem of women, put it that way.
Yeah. All the horror stories we can talk
I
about.
know, I know. So anyway, yeah, I've divulged so much right now, haven't I? Just to
Well,
let you know, you
I
want
didn't,
to say that
yeah,
again?
I didn't mind a few weeks ago, so it's only fair, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. But I
But
just
I
want
remember,
people to know that there's no shame in it. There is no shame. And I tell the story with no shame. I have compassion for my younger self that didn't know any better. You know, who knows that your therapist is not supposed to fall in love with you when you've never been in therapy before. And so it's and for anybody out there that is caught in this type of relationship, or maybe even with a therapist or a doctor or a teacher or something like that, to just know that you're not alone, that there is no shame, and to speak up, and there
yeah.
is support out there.
And on top of that, or in addition to that, I'd also recommend that you find people in your life that you can trust,
Mhm.
and not just blindly trust, but it's like you test and verify sort of thing. You find people in life, not necessarily family members, but oftentimes not people you know you can count on, so that if you do meander into somebody else's persuasive tendencies, you've got somebody you can touchstone with and connect with and say, is this real or is this made up? So you know for yourself, 'cause that's a good starting point. Obviously, ideally do it for yourself in the first place, which is what we do with our clients, is get them back on their own 2 feet. But sometimes as a stepping stone towards that, finding someone you can trust in your life that is your sounding board, so to speak, and also your resource to have so that you don't get so tempted.
Yeah.
So you start to see more clearly, even when you hypnotized.
Yeah, and just to that point, these people will sell themselves as being trustworthy,
Of
sell
course.
themselves to woo you in. So it's not about just finding one other person to trust. Have a group around you.
Even
Have
better.
have
Yeah.
different people, not all of them like a cult group. I'm talking about, have your family, have your childhood friend, have your, you know, other people that can keep you in reality, because often these people, as I say, they will, the grooming that goes on beforehand is, you think you have met somebody that loves you, sees you, would never hurt you, would always take care of you, because that how it all starts. So
Right.
just trusting somebody, it's got to go beyond that. You need to have a few people that have known you for a very long time that you can check in with, you know.
Yeah. As a reminder, if it seems too good to be true, it often is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right
Quite,
then.
that was quite a conversation.
That was a good show. But I think next week, Barry, we should really talk about
Advocating responsibility.
yeah, taking
Yeah.
responsibility for ourselves, and it's a muscle that often many of us have not exercised, and it's awkward at first and painful, like any muscle that's atrophied or shrunk.
Right.
So
But it's also one of the biggest pieces to work with. When you do that, it changes everything else too. So yes, let's get into that next week.
all right, fabulous. Okay, well, thank you again, everyone, for a lovely week, and I will see you next week, Barry,
See you next week, Dale. Take care of yourselves.
and you too. Thank you.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.